Howdy, this is Luis Saldana, Extension 4-H Program Specialist with Texas A&M AgriLife Extension Service with another short video on how to use the 4-H 3D scorecard. This is a scorecard that I developed with guidance and help from several others for our specific 4-H 3D archery match. Now, you may have seen the previous video on how to actually score a 3D target, and so this is a follow-up to that that goes over specifically the scorecard that we use. So I'm going to go through this, point out a few important features, and then actually show you a scorecard that's already been completed. So I'm going to point out several things in general here, which you see over here on the left-hand side. This big box here in this area represents the actual scoring area. The area here to your right, this is intended to be helpful as the 4-H members are on the range. If they have questions related to how to score a specific target, this is intended to be helpful. It's not all-inclusive, but each target, of course, is a little different, but this is intended to kind of help them through that process. And then down here in the bottom, this is actually the archer's information, including the score, the archer's initials, and then the total score. So we'll go through this individually. What I'd like to do is start maybe with the scoring guide. So touched a little bit about on this in the last video, but if you look at, depending on the manufacturer of the target, this is essentially what you might see. This white ring right here, this outer ring, represents perhaps, for those that do have it, a replaceable core, and that's actually a seam where this core comes out of the target and is replaced after it's been used quite a bit. Sometimes this ring is on the inside of the vital ring, sometimes it's on the outside. It just depends on the target and the size of the core. So nonetheless, the black area here is the animal itself, the 3D target. That constitutes a hit, or an H. If it's inside this replacement core, but it's outside the vital ring, it still counts as an H, as you can see by these H's here. Then you have the vital ring, which is this big area that generally represents the lung area. And 4-H archery, according to Texas 4-H archery rules, scoring rules, the vital ring, which is this large area, counts as 5 points. Sometimes you have a smaller circle inside the vital ring that also counts as 5 points, but everything in here counts as 5. Then you have this ring, which is the heart ring. That counts as 10 points. And in this particular example, there's 3 small rings inside the heart ring. What's most important to remember is generally the one in the center counts as the X ring, and that is actually 12 points. So this ring would be 10 points, that ring would be 10 points, and anywhere in the heart ring would be 10, anywhere in the X ring would be a 12. And then lastly, of course, it's scored while the arrow is in the target. If the shaft of the arrow actually breaks the plane, if you will, or of the circle, then you score up. So in a case where, for example, we'll do it up here where you can see, if this was there, that would be a 5. If it were right there, that ideally would be a 10, etc. So you can follow, there's some instructions down below, but that's just intended to serve as a guide. So back out a little bit. Okay, in terms of the section down here, this is a couple of things that we use. One is it's identified the age division. So intermediate is 6th to 8th grade. The juniors are 3rd through 5th grade, and the seniors are 9th through 12th grade. So this particular, we use a color-coded scorecard that helps us identify quickly what age division it is. This one happens to be yellow for the intermediates, which are your 6th to 8th graders. Archer name, their county, and then their bow division. We use 5 bow divisions. We have bare bow, recurve, NASP Genesis, compound unaided, and compound aided. These boxes here are intended to be initials for the archer and the scorer, and then of course the big box here is the total. So let's get down to the nitty-gritty and talk specifically about how to score this scorecard, or how to use this scorecard. One of the more important things here is, if you look in the far left-hand column here, is the station number. In our particular match, we stagger the kids throughout the range, so they all start at a different station. So we always recommend, for example, that if they start at a specific station, that they star, let's say this archer is going to start at station number 12, that they star it, and you can see right here what I'm talking about. Because one of the biggest mistakes that archers make on the range is they start at 12, they start shooting at 12, but they actually start recording scores up here because inherently we want to start at the top of the page. So in this case, this archer starts at 12, and they have 5 choices to mark, either a miss, a hit, a 5, a 10, or a 12. And we already talked about how to score that. We didn't really talk about the misses, but miss is obvious in this case. And a miss also includes the tree stump or the rock or anything that's not the animal that may be actually part of the molded 3D target. But at any rate, this archer starts at station 12. They shoot 1 arrow, and after the other archers at that station shoot their arrow, they all go up and score. And so very simply, if they miss completely or miss the animal, they would just circle a miss. If they hit but they do not hit a scoring ring, then they would circle a hit. And if you'll notice, there's a dark line right in between the miss and the hit and the numerical scores. All that indicates is that these are non-scoring, non-numerical values, and then these are obviously scoring numerical values. So this archer starts at 12. Let's say they hit, so they would circle the 5. Okay, then they move on to the next station. So in this case, it would move to number 13. 13, let's say they did a little better on that one, and they actually hit the heart ring, so they score a 10. They move on to station 14. They do even better, and boy, they hit it right in the sweet spot. They get the X ring, they score 12. And so ideally, they would go through all of these all the way through, and they rotate all the way to 30. And then in this particular example, this archer, once they're done with 30, would come back to station number 1 and continue their match. Once they're done, then you come down here to the bottom and you use these boxes. So ideally you would come down and just simply count the number of misses. And so you would put that number here. You would count the number of hits, put that number here. Count not the sum, but the total count of number of 5s, and so you would put that number here. Same thing with the numbers of 10s and the numbers of 12s. So these two particular things, all we're doing is counting, because they have no numerical value in terms of score, is how many times we missed, how many times we hit. Then we get into the numerical values. So if this number was, say, a 4, they had hit a total of 4 targets in the 5, which would be the vital ring. Then you take 4 times 5, and that gives you 20. Let's say this was 6, and so 6 times 10 would be 60. And let's say there was 3 12. So 3 times 12 would be 36. Then if you follow these 3 across to the total, so you would say, what's 20 and 60? That's 80, and 36 is 116, so the archer would write 116 there. The archer would put their initials here. I'm going to put AR for archer. And the scorer, and they're always shooting these stations in teams of at least 2 or 3 archers at a time. So to verify the scorer would put their initials here, and they all score for each other. So that's ideally, it's really simple. That's how this scorecard works. And what I did is I have a sample from our last match, and of course I covered the name to keep the innocent, to protect the innocent, if you will. And so let's look at how they did this. In this particular case, if you'll notice, they did not mark what station they started on. Not uncommon. But if you go through, one of the things you look at is each station only has 1 circle. So you can go through there and look, and each one has just 1 circle, and they all go through. And you see, now you get down to number 30, and you say, oh, they missed 1. Well, this particular match, there was a problem with station number 30, so we actually eliminated station 30 altogether. So they actually only shot 29 in this particular match, 29 stations. And so, you know, this is an actual archer's scorecard. It is an intermediate, so when you think what age division, this would be a 6th to 8th grader. And they go through and you count the total number of M's. So you come through here, there's 1. So you would, archer put a 1 here. And you count the number of hits. That's hitting the animal but not hitting the scoring ring. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So they put a 7 here. And that's where those pretty much end. Then you get into the numerical scores or the scoring rings. You got in the 5 column, you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So they write 7 5s. And then you do the same thing on the 10s, and you start at the top. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. And so they put a 9 here. Now, you notice this one right here has got a scratch through. So one of the things, that's why we went through there, and you look and make sure it's only one circle. So in this case, they clearly scratched this out, and they actually missed. So they put a 9. One of the interesting things is, anytime you do anything in handwritten form, you got to deal with handwriting. That looks like a 9, could be a 9, should be a 9. Then you get to 12. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So you got 5 here. So all those numbers are correct. Everything matches. So then 7 times 5 is 35. 9 times 10 is 90. And 5 times 12 is 60. Again, if you look at the handwriting, sometimes it can be a bit challenging. Then you add across. Well, 35 and 90 is 125. 125 and 60 is 185. So you come over, and sure enough, they marked 185. You have the archer's signature or initials here. I'll cover that up. And then you have the scorer's initials here. All of the scoring on the 3D match is done by the archers themselves, not by a team of scorers that are independently watching. So here's the example. It was pretty simple. Once you get the hang of it, you should be good. Hope that you found this video helpful. This scorecard is available on our website at d124h.tamu.edu. Just look for the shooting sports link and go to Archery, and you should be able to find the scorecard. This obviously we revised this sometime in, I believe, May of 2017. So hope you found this helpful.